Good morning, good morning, good morning. Lovely to see you today. Happy Wednesday to you. I hope that all is well with you. Today we're continuing our poetry unit. I wanted to talk a little bit about TP-Castt. At first I was just going to let you use the book and figure it out, but I wanted to kind of elucidate things a little bit more for you. TP-Castt is a technique for analyzing poetry at different levels, analyzing at different levels of the poem. There's another technique in the book called twist, which is valid as well. It's more for more straightforward approaches to analysis on the poem, but this one kind of focuses a little bit more on, or at least it touches on, the figurative language as well. And that's why I like it, TP-Castt. So it's in your book. It's in your Springboard book. It's actually activity 412. Now you can, hopefully you have your books at home. Most of you have your books at home. Some of you left them in my classroom. So if that is the case, there is an online version of the textbook. You can go to clever.com or download the Clever app on your phone, or there might be one on a desktop. There's one on my desktop. So I assume you can get it. Of course, the county put it there for me. But clever.com is where you go. And then once in, you pick Pope High School, not Allen C. Pope. It doesn't have it under A, which sometimes they do, Allen C. Pope High School. It's just under Pope High School. So look that up, and then you're going to put in your username and password that you use in the library, in the media center. So your student number and then whatever your password is. It should work on Clever. And then you pick the Springboard textbook for grade 9 and go to activity 412. So if it is on if it's in your actual textbook, the pages are 336 to 338. Now the TP-Castt stuff is information is actually on page 338. So it wants you to analyze this poem Young. Read this poem by Anne Sexton. First, answer those questions. You're not going to be turning those in. So if you want to answer those mentally or whatever, or write it out in the book. It gives you a space to write it out. So you can do that. You're not turning it in though. So you're not going to get credit for it. Oh no, I can't do it. No, you can. I'm sure you can. But it's up to you. So after you do those questions, then look over at the TP-Castt, and it's a different way to analyze the poem. All right, I'm going to put it up on the screen here. What's in your textbook? It might look a little bit different from mine because mine is the teacher edition up here. But it should look something similar to this, right? Your Springboard book is you pick the right one for grade 9, and then your activities are over here. You're going to go to 412, which is poetry analysis of Young. Okay, so that is up here. It actually has a woman read it to you if you'd like. You can press that, and she'll read it to you. It has a better picture than the one that's in the book. And you answer these questions. I already have the answers there because it's the teacher's edition. So if you're a good pauser, you could have grabbed those. Anyway, so here is TP-Castt. I'm going to pull up a PDF that I have that actually predates Springboard because TP-Castt is something I've been using for a long time. And they put it in the book and like, oh, look at this new thing that we have. But really, we've been doing it for a while. So TP-Castt Poetry Analysis. This is the handout that's on my blog that you can download. Okay? So the way it starts is you look at the title of the poem. You look at any, this works for any poem is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to necessarily be for Young. It could be for any of the poems. Tomorrow, I want you to look at the Poetry Cafe, which is in the book. It's activity 413, and it has several poems, I think 6 or 7 poems that you can look at. They're short. They're really good. I recommend Harlem by Langston Hughes. It's one of my favorite. Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson is fantastic. I also love Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. But read them all. You know, they're short, they're fun. Poetry's fun. Yay, we're having fun. Okay, what else do you have to do? Woo, quarantine. Anyway, so you look at the title of the poem, and you don't just look at the title. You want to make a prediction about what the poem is about. So when you are doing your Poetry Cafe, you're going to have to do this for one of the poems. This is tomorrow's assignment. This is what you need to turn in. You're not turning in the questions for Young. You're turning in this TP-Castt for a poem of your choice. Now, you can also go to poetry.org and just look up poems that you like. Maybe there's a poem that you remember that you love that you want to examine a little bit more closely. Feel free to do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the book, but there are 7 or 8 there that are available for you to use for the TP-Castt. But pick whatever poem you want. Okay, poetry.org is a great resource, and you can just search types of poems, you can search poets, you can search themes, you can search all these things and find just a wealth of poetry to look at. And so pick something that you want to read, because that is the point. It should appeal to your heart. It should appeal to your emotion. Poetry is about emotion. Poetry is not about information. It's about emotion, how it makes you feel. Okay? So once you pick the poem, you want to look at the title. Consider the title. Make a prediction about what this poem is about. Okay? And then the next, you want to paraphrase it literally. This says, translate the poem line by line into your own words on a literal level. Okay? What is the poet literally saying? You want to look for complete sentences. Sometimes a poem doesn't have complete sentences. That poem, Young, interesting thing about it is that it doesn't have a punctuation that ends in the sentences. So it reads as one long stream of thought, which is definitely deliberate. It's not like she forgot to put them in. It is so that it reads as this one long kind of stream of consciousness thought, which is pretty cool. So translate the poem, whichever poem you choose, into literal meaning. That's what paraphrase is. That's the P in TP Castt. Okay? Connotation, to me, is the heart of it. Connotation is where you examine the poem for meaning beyond the literal, right? Denotation is the literal definition of a word. Connotation is what is implied by it. So we want to look beyond the literal for the poetry here, for connotation. So you're looking for figurative language, imagery, and sound elements in this section. So figurative language, again, that's simile. I can speak English. Simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole. Those are your pillars of figurative language. So you want to look for instances of that and try to figure out what they mean, why she put them in there, okay? Then you want to look at strong imagery, things that appeal to your five senses, right? Sensory language that the poet uses. And then sound elements. Sound elements are things like alliteration, consonants, assonance, rhythm, rhyme. One sound element that I didn't really get to talk about when we were, and I thought about it later, when I did my video for Charge of the Light Brigade, is the beginning. The beginning sounds like galloping horses. It says onward again, and it has this awesome sound effect right at the beginning of Charge of the Light Brigade. If I were you, go back and look at it and just think about how it sounds like horses galloping, to imitate, the fact that the cavalry is charging into that fight in the Crimean War. So really cool thing. I didn't remember to talk about it before, but sound elements have that effect sometimes. In Charge of the Light Brigade, it was meant to mimic the sound of horses riding, but the sound element could be anything. Alliteration, again, the repetition of the consonant sound at the beginning. Rhyme has a great effect on us. Rhythm has a great effect on us as well. Meter, all that. Is an iambic pentameter. Is that very kind of highfalutin, like iambic pentameter or a sonnet. So you want to look at all of those things. So connotation for me is the heart of the analysis of TP Castt. Okay? That's where you're looking at what it means beyond the literal. So paraphrase is the literal. Connotation is beyond the literal. Okay? The A stands for attitude or tone. What is the speaker's tone? Not the poet, the speaker, the person speaking the poem, which is not necessarily the poet. Sometimes it is, but it's not necessarily the poet. So you want to look at their tone attitude. Is it sarcastic? Is it humorous? Is it in awe of something, describing this wonderful, sunrise or something like that? What is the attitude or the tone that the speaker is putting into the poem that you've read? Okay. Next, we want to look at any shifts. Most poems have a shift, whether that's kind of figuring out the meaning at the end. Maybe the final couplet is where the shift is. The shift could be anywhere. Maybe the beginning is looking back to childhood, and then it shifts to looking forward or looking at the present. Whatever it is, there's often a shift in a poem. In sonnets, the shift is always, well, not always, but with Shakespearean sonnets, it is usually after the first 8 lines. And in the final 6, there's a shift. Okay? So look for where the shift is. It could even be a change in the speaker. Maybe the speaker is someone else. Maybe the first part is one person speaking, and then the other part is another person speaking. Poetry is like unlimited what the shift could be. Okay? But I think that there is probably a shift in the poem that you're reading, no matter what it is, because usually that's what kind of is the hook. That's what the hook is in the poem, is that shift. So that's why it's important. That's why you want to look for it. So you're looking for keywords, time change, punctuation. Keywords I'm talking about are like transition words that you would use in an essay. Things like however, moreover, something that transitions from one thought to the next will indicate a shift. So look for those key words. Okay, next we want to look at the title again. Did its meaning change at all? Did the meaning change? You want to examine the title again, more on an interpretive level. Interpret why the poet chose to name their poem what they named it. Okay, you want to interpret the title. So up here, it was a guess. The first time we did title. The second one, it is an interpretation. Why it's called that. And then once you've done all of the first TP Castt, not the last T, the final T is the theme. You want to create a theme statement in your own words, what the poem is about and what the poet is saying about that subject. Okay? And that is essentially the analysis, that theme statement. So you can do that with Young, the poem that is associated with TP Castt and Springboard, and write a final kind of theme statement of what the poet was saying and why they were saying it, how they were saying it. Okay? It's pretty simple. It can be used for any poem. It's something I've been using a long time, way before Springboard. Springboard just happens to have it as well. So check it out. Today, there's nothing due. You don't have to turn in those questions for Young. You should have turned in the Charge of the Light Brigade questions yesterday, but if you haven't yet, turn them in. You know, this is we're not sticklers on deadlines in online Holman class. Okay, so turn those in. So if you want that extra daily grade, the daily grade for this assignment actually comes from the poem of your choice that you'll download this handout and fill it out and just take a picture, scan it for me, and send it back. All right. Let's see what else. People. Not sure. I think that's it. So the good thing about TP Castt is that it makes it pretty simple. So this is a pretty simple video. Since my dogs are running around chasing each other and barking at each other, I'm going to call it a day. All right? I hope this helps. And enjoy reading some poetry tomorrow, whether it's the stuff from the book or just on poetry.org. All right? Bella needs to stop barking, so I'm going to go yell at her. Okay? Not really, but I'll pet her and she'll stop. I'm just talking nonsense now, so I'm going to hit the stop button. Bye.